This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Eben Janssen. This show is very much live. It's broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now, where the whole show is always available for you on demand on our YouTube channel. Now, the Cape Minstrels Carnival will now be held on the 17th of January after two postponements. We'll talk to the City of Cape Town about this breakthrough shortly. Also, first up, we'll look at the ANC's 103rd birthday celebrations that start officially in Cape Town today. In our Matric 2014 slot, we talk about depression and how learners can get help. We closed the show today by looking at South African cricket's World Cup squad that was announced at the V&A waterfront yesterday. But first, let's get the day's news from Katrine Milan.
Well, hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Katrine Milan, and let's just take a look at the news making headlines this morning. An 18-year-old implicated alongside two brothers in the bloody attack against satirical weekly Charlie Hebdo in Paris yesterday has surrendered to police. French police published photos of the remaining suspects who shot dead 12 people at the Paris office of the magazine. 8 journalists and 2 policemen were among the dead.
We have therefore engaged the anti-terrorist security plan in case of attack. They will be pursued for as long as is necessary in order that they be arrested, brought before a judge and sentenced. France is today facing a shock.
Back with local news, the ANC is celebrating its 103rd anniversary today. The ruling party has stepped up its campaign to convince its support base in the Western Cape. Zuma and the ruling party's top brass have been crisscrossing the province to drum support ahead of the annual January 8th statement, which will be delivered by Zuma at Cape Town Stadium on Saturday.
Area and have multiplied by leaps and bounds. Our government has responded positively to giving them accommodation, to electrifying their homes, reticulating water, sanitation in the houses has been looked after, but in the 18,000 informal settlement we still have work to do.
Meanwhile, the ANC has thanked the minstrels for postponing their annual parade to the 17th. The minstrels have been at war of words with the City of Cape Town over the 11th hour postponement of the annual parade that attracts tens of thousands of people. The parade was earlier postponed to this Saturday, clashing with the ANC's 103rd anniversary celebrations in the city. Minister of Higher Education and Training Dr. Bladen Zimande says he will soon reveal plans to deal with the challenges faced by tertiary institutions during the registration period. Speaking on the sidelines of the SABC conference in KwaZulu-Natal, Zimande said he had met with university heads and student bodies to address admission-related problems. Hopeful students have already flocked to universities in a scramble for space after the release of their matric results.
Some of the colleges, they only exist now for a month just to collect money. Thereafter, there is no college. You find the doors closed. Or the college continues, but it's not registered. So we are pleading with our communities to cooperate by checking.
And power utility Eskom says although the grid has stabilized, it is still under immense pressure. One of their generating units, which experienced problems yesterday, is back in operation. The power utility says load shedding could still be implemented should electricity not be used sparingly. Now remember, all those top stories and more are all available on our Newsroom Facebook page. Then you can also keep up to date with our journalists on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Eben, back to you.
Thank you very much, Katrine. The ANC is 103 years old today, and it's the oldest liberation movement on the African continent. It was formed on the 8th of January in 1912 in Bloemfontein, but the 103rd anniversary celebrations will be held in Cape Town. The ruling party has stepped up its campaign to convince its support base in the Western Cape. President Zuma and the ruling party's top brass have been crisscrossing the province to drum up support ahead of the annual January 8th statement, which will be delivered by President Zuma at the Cape Town Stadium on Saturday. President Zuma has wished the ruling party well. Now, the SABC's contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko, joins us from Khayelitsha in Cape Town. A very good morning to you, Vuyo. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Evan.
Vuyo, just set the scene for us there in Khayelitsha. What's the expectation today?
Well, Evan, over the past hour or so, people started arriving. The emergency services from the municipality, they've also arrived, as well as the protection services, the presidential unit that is responsible for security, for detectors and that sort of thing. They too have arrived. So in a few hours from now, in another 5 or so hours, we expect President Jacob Zuma to be here, and he will be addressing members of this community in this hall behind me, the OR Tambo Recreational Center. And that is where the ANC today is going to hold what they call a mini rally. And that is really to mark the day, because January the 8th, the day of the birthday of the ANC, is in fact today. But the big rally, of course, as you outlined in your introduction, is on Saturday. And that is where President Jacob Zuma will read that very long and quite detailed statement that the National Executive Committee of the ANC approved yesterday. They had a meeting yesterday in Cape Town, and that is where they were taken through the issues that President Jacob Zuma will be raising, the issues that he will be taking the nation through. And that meeting, of course, took more than an hour in Cape Town to approve that statement. And we did speak this morning to Jesse Duarte, the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, about just some of the issues that the President is expected to touch on. Among those issues, he said, was obviously service delivery, but also the kind of public service that the ANC wants to build beyond this point, but also the kind of cadreship that they want to see serving the people of South Africa. But the details, of course, she told us, will be unveiled in that all-important statement, which will be read by President Jacob Zuma on Saturday. Yeben?
Will you talk to us about the mood? It's been at times a tempestuous week for the ANC in the Western Cape. What's the mood like today? And is everybody happy with the way things have proceeded after tough negotiations to get a stadium even earlier this week?
Well, I mean, we've been here since the weekend. We've been speaking to ANC leaders. We've been going around with them as they were doing door-to-door visits, addressing communities, addressing public gatherings. And if you listened to what Gweda Mantashe had to say on Monday, the party is very unhappy with the treatment they say they have been getting from the DA run municipality here in Cape Town, but also from the DA run provincial government. They've been complaining bitterly about the treatment that they have been getting, saying the DA is imposing apartheid era influx control measures that they haven't been getting in any of the other provinces that are being run by the ANC. The DA has, of course, retaliated, saying the ANC is not used to doing things properly. The ANC is not used to being told that you've got to do things by the book. And the DA is adamant that both the municipality and the provincial government have done nothing wrong. What they have been asking the ANC to do has been asking them to do the right thing. For instance, with regard to the municipality, to the hall, the venue that the ANC is going to use, which is the stadium, on Saturday, they say that all they were asking them to do is to pay up front, because the ANC doesn't have a reputation of paying people once they have done they have used the facilities that they would have asked for. So it's a bit of this one blaming the other. Well, I guess the truth is somewhere in between. But coming back to the people themselves, what they have been telling ANC leaders is that, because remember, when you organize this sort of thing, you do obviously want to speak to your party faithful first. In other words, the sort of people who are sympathetic to you and who understand where you are coming from. There, you didn't get any disappointment, because those people, as much as they are frustrated, as much as they are unhappy, even with the ANC, you do get a sense that they are prepared to give it a chance. For example, a short while ago, we spoke to a group of people who are from the surrounding around here in Khayelitsha, who had a tragedy last year where they lost their houses to a fire. President Jacob Zuma, they say, did visit this area soon thereafter, and they did raise their concerns with him. But they did say that as much as they have faith in the ANC in trying to resolve their problems, they didn't get a sense that he did enough to actually raise their issues with the provincial government, if that's what he had to do, or whether the national government, if it was national government that needed to deal with this problem, did what they were supposed to do. But that said, they were also they were unambiguous about their continued support for the ANC. But of course, if you listened to other parts, I remember about 2 days ago, there was a youth gathering. There were some young people outside that venue who said they believe that the ANC was hijacking that program, and they were unhappy with what they believe that the DA actually stands a better chance of delivering services to young people, because that was a young people's gathering, that the DA stands a better chance of delivering to young people than what the ANC would do. So you get that mixed reaction wherever you go, depending, of course, on who you are talking to. Yeben?
Thank you very much, Vuyo Mvoko. That's our contributing editor who is live in Khayelitsha today, where that mini rally will take place. Vuyo will keep us updated as to how things develop in Khayelitsha and also into the weekend, of course, with the 103rd anniversary celebrations of the ruling party here in South Africa. We stay in Cape Town. The annual and traditional Cape Town Carnival Parade will now be held on the 17th of January. The parade, which traditionally takes place on the 2nd of January, known as Tweede Nuwe Jaar in the Cape, was twice cancelled, first for religious reasons, they say, and again then because of logistical problems. The Cape Town Cultural and Carnival Committee met twice with the Minstrel Committee. Finally, yesterday, both parties moved beyond the blame game to come up with a new date. The Carnival has also become a bitter political battle between the African National Congress and the Democratic Alliance, with even the economic freedom fighters having their say on the matter. The Minstrels Committee blamed the city of Cape Town for changing the date to Saturday, the 10th of January, which would have coincided with the ANC celebrations. Now, we are joined from Cape Town by the acting Mayoral Committee Member for Tourism, Events and Economic Development, Mr. Brett Heron. A very good morning to you, Mr. Heron. Thank you very much for joining us.
Morning, Eben. Thank you.
Mr. Heron, before we start, I would like you to, look at this clip when we were joined a little bit earlier in the week by the ANC Western Cape chairperson, Mr. Marius Fransman. Let's just have a look at what he had to say about this matter, and then I'd like your reaction.
Historically, it happens on the Tweede Nuwe Jaar for more than 100 years. You must remember it comes from the slave history. Secondly, 3-4 years ago, Helen Zille, when she was the Premier, she started to say they can't walk into the Boer Cup, meaning the first attack on the culture. The second attack on the culture is to change it from the Tweede Nuwe Jaar a year ago to try and push it out. This year, we saw initially Tweede Nuwe Jaar, then the 3rd of January on the Saturday. The minstrel agreed with that. However, when there was a important religious evening for the Muslims, there was an arrangement to do it early enough. Then at 3 days before the time, they were requested to do it on the 5th. When the 5th happened, which is a normal working day, the city didn't make the proper logistical support arrangements for the minstrels. Now Patricia de Lille runs around and she's accusing the ANC of lying, she's accusing the minstrels of lying. My advice to her is just reflect internally, why is it so difficult for the city to make sure that they give all professional support to this working class community, in the coloured community, to make that this is the best event that we can find every year in Cape Town. And I think what we are seeing is an onslaught. We are saying to the minstrels also, get your act together, make sure that your management structure is in place, and ensure that you are able to outmaneuver these onslaughts. Finally, on the point is on Saturday, whether the minstrels going to walk or not, we are saying the ANC will not stand in the way of the minstrels community to make sure that their heritage are protected and advanced. We are calling on Patricia de Lille to, in fact, to be mature enough. I know Patricia's heart is right, but I do know her party is having a different agenda, and we are calling on her to realize this one's Mensa. It's our people. It's ordinary community. It's working class people. And let's go and celebrate the minstrels community events as well.
Now, Mr. Heron, you've heard that extended little clip of the ANC's provincial leader in the Western Cape. He calls it an onslaught on the culture and heritage of the people of the Western Cape. How do you view this and how do you react to this?
Well, I think Mr. Fransman has got it completely wrong. Certainly there's no onslaught. The city and the province are firm, loyal and consistent supporters of the minstrel event and have been for many, many, many years. I think it's demonstrated by all of the efforts we put in place to make sure the event is successful. I mean, this year between the city and the province, we have allocated nearly 6 million rand to support the event. And I think we must go back to last year. If you recall the headlines last year, the minstrels were complaining that the city had appointed an events organizer to arrange the event. They indicated that they felt that they could arrange the event. This was their event. And so early in 2014, when we reconvened to plan this year's event, the first thing they put on the table was that they wanted to be the event organizer and that the city should just be a financial and logistics supporter. So the agreement with the minstrels is that they would arrange the event, they would arrange the transport, and the city gave them 2 million rand in sponsorship funding. The provincial government gave them about 2.5 million rand in funding, and the city also undertook to provide services to the value of about 1.6 million rand. So the city has committed financially and logistically to support this event, and really we responded to their request to allow them to arrange their own event. The shifting of the date, the date is traditionally is the 2nd of January. The 2nd of January fell on a Friday, which is a Muslim day of prayer. The Muslim Judicial Council asked both us, the city, and the minstrels to move the date. It was moved to the 3rd initially, or considered for the 3rd, but the 3rd was also a religious day for the Muslim community, and all the parties agreed that the 5th of January would be the best date to host this event.
I want to talk about Tweede Nuwe Jaar. It is a day that's formed part of the fabric of the local community for hundreds of years, really, in the Western Cape. Why did the city then decide to move from this day in the first instance? I think the first time was last year, if I stand to be corrected.
Look, the city didn't decide to move the date. As I indicated, there was a request from the Muslim Judicial Council that we move the date because it fell on a Friday, and a Friday is a holy day of prayer for the Muslim community. Many of the members of the troops are Muslim, and so it was a request. It wasn't the city's decision to move that date. It was a request. The request was put to both the city and the Minstrels Committee, and it was agreed amongst the three parties, including the Muslim Judicial Council, that the date would be moved out of respect for the Muslim faith.
What do you then say to criticism from the ANC that the event was moved around this week to undermine their birthday celebrations in Cape Town?
Well, it's utter nonsense. The event was scheduled for Monday, the 5th of January. On the 30th of December, the city met with the Minstrels Committee. Everything was on track for the 5th of January. In fact, the Minstrels indicated that they had managed to procure 80 buses from private bus operators, but that there were additional costs involved in doing so, and they asked for additional funding from the city. The city agreed to provide extra funding to cover the costs of the additional cost of the buses. And then we learnt on Sunday, the day before the event, that the Minstrels Committee had decided to cancel it for the 5th of January. I mean, the city was not involved in that cancellation. And the prospect of hosting this event or having this event on the 10th was first mentioned by the Minstrels. It was not the city who suggested the 10th of January, which coincides with the ANC's 103rd birthday. And certainly the city probably wouldn't have supported the 10th of January because logistically it would have been very difficult for the city to host two major events on the same day.
Are you at odds at the moment with the organising committee around finances and financing of this event?
Well, we're not at odds at all about the financing. We are obviously disappointed that they cancelled this event, that they gave us assurances throughout the last few weeks and as recently as the 30th of December that they were ready to roll on the 5th of January. The event must take place and will take place later this month. And the unpacking of the finances and how the money's been spent is something that is bound to happen after the event, and the committee is contractually obliged to be transparent about their finances.
Finally, Mr. Heron, how do you, as the city, deal with the unhappiness amongst the local citizens in and around the Western Cape who feel, in a way, their heritage, traditions and culture has been undermined during this whole political process?
Well, I think the Minstrels Committee must take responsibility for failing to arrange the event. As I indicated, they undertook to arrange it. They requested that the city step out and allow them to arrange the event as it is their event. So they certainly must take responsibility. But you will know that the Mayor has already apologized to the residents of Cape Town and our visitors who love this event for the event's failure to take place on Monday.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That is Mr. Brett Heron, who is the acting mayoral committee member for tourism, events and economic development in the city of Cape Town. Let's have a quick look at some of your tweets. We've been playing others on screen while you sing. Tebe Kalafeng says, Africa's oldest liberation movement and South Africa's first democratically elected ruling party, my ANC. ANC's 103rd, of course, anniversary celebrated on this day, January the 8th. Amandla, he says. Sibiwe Benani says, happy birthday to our glorious liberation movement, the ANC. Amandla, ANC 103. Justice Ndaba says, many happy returns, ANC 103. Of course, at SABC Newsroom. That's where you can send us your contributions. We'll put them up on screen. If we can't, we'll try and run them on the news straps that you see we've got with your comments on, because we love your contributions, especially pictures. It adds a lot to what we do on the show. Now, let's take a quick look at the front pages from around the world. It's been an incredible sort of news day in France. Most international papers, of course, focusing on yesterday's tragic shooting in Paris. There you'll see the Mirror in the United Kingdom has called the terror bloodbath barbaric. Then in the United States, you'll see a picture of some of yesterday's chaotic scenes in Paris on the Financial Times. And in Australia, the Daily Telegraph is looking at that same story, showing an injured policeman being shot by gunmen as he pleads for his life. That's on the front page in that country. Now, staying with the Paris attacks, French local media this morning have expressed outrage over the bloody attack at the Paris offices of the satirical weekly Charlie Hebdo. 3 masked gunmen, of course, stormed into the media house yesterday, killing at least 12 people and wounding 11 more before escaping. The incident has been described as France's deadliest terrorist attack in decades. Now, joining us on the line from Tehran in Iran is Professor Farid Essek, a professor in the study of Islam and the head of religious studies here at the University of Johannesburg, but he's in Tehran at the moment. A very good morning to you, Professor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you.
Professor, firstly, your response to yesterday's attack in Paris.
Well, 2 responses. At a gut level, it's absolutely ghastly, unjustified, absolutely horrific, and a very, very ominous start for Europe in 2015. And at another level, not surprised really I think there is an inevitability about all of this, given the growing discomfort of Muslims in Europe, given the growing escalation of fundamentalist, very violent Muslim responses, given the huge amount of Europeans, especially young people, fighting along ISIS in Iraq and in Syria, and the inevitable return of these people to their European countries on the one hand, and on the other, those who don't succeed in going it, seeing what part of the action they can get on local ground without having to go through the difficulties and the political awkwardnesses and punishments upon return if you decide to take the longer route and go right through to Syria and Iraq, as many recruits in Belgium, France, Germany, in England and the United States have succeeded in doing.
Professor, you are in Iran at the moment, you're in Tehran, in the capital. How is this news been received there, and what kind of reportage do you see in the newspapers and in the broadcast space there?
Well, it has made big news in Tehran. It is on the main. It is the main item in the newspapers. But as most other events in Iran, it is covered in a language of the chickens have come home to roost.
Professor, we see on social media today, and even in the mainstream media, we see reports and comments of people talking about Islam as being a religion of war. What is your response to that kind of reporting?
Well, first of all, it is in the nature of the news media, especially with also social media today, that people respond to the reflections of events, the reflections of larger currents. And the killings in France, for example, are a reflection of larger tensions that exist inside the world of Islam, and more specifically, a reflection of how Muslims are responding to the different kinds of occupations, the violence with which secularism is being imposed onto the Muslim lands, and onto, in some cases, occupation and invasion of Muslim lands. So these are reflections of that. However, it is quite clear that very many ordinary people continue to see this as a fundamental impulse, a fundamental violence impulse in Islam. Islam, like all other religions, are appropriated by believers and expressed by believers. Not so long ago, to take a view of history, no one sees how the Crusades, how violent actions in the Christian world, in the Western world.
Well, unfortunately, it seems as if we've lost Professor Farid Esak there. He, of course, is in Tehran. We got him on the line there for you this morning to talk about Islam after this horrific attack in Paris yesterday. 12 people were killed. We can tell you that 11 more have been injured in the attack, and the death toll, some say, is expected to rise. But before we go to an ad break, let's just take a quick look at what's happening across the country today. Now, here in Johannesburg, the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry will release the December 2014 Business Confidence Index. There you have it. Then in Pretoria, Public Works Minister Thulas Nxesi is expected to award 40 matriculants bursaries worth 120,000 Rand each at the Valmore Hotel Estate in Centurion. Good news, isn't it? In Cape Town, the South African Communist Party, donning the red berets, they say their own, in the Western Cape, will hold the 20th anniversary commemoration lecture in honour of former General Secretary and Chairperson Joe Slovo. First Deputy Secretary General Jeremy Cronin will deliver the lecture in that case. You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back with you after a short break.
Didier Drogba, a footballer from Ivory Coast, was named as the third most influential celebrity in Africa.
Where I saw him display, he's a very nice player. He always make an impact.
Drogba donated his $5 million endorsement fee to the construction of a hospital in Abidjan.
Well, there are some lesser-known football stars in the continent that you haven't met.
Really?
And are deserving of more attention.
I think we will do better.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Well, hello and welcome back to Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just recap on the news-making headlines this morning. An 18-year-old implicated alongside two brothers in the bloody attack against satirical weekly Charlie Hebdo in Paris yesterday has surrendered to police. French police published photos of the remaining suspects who shot dead 12 people at the Paris office of the magazine. 8 journalists and 2 policemen were among the dead. The ANC is celebrating its 103rd anniversary today. The ruling party has stepped up its campaign to convince its support base in the Western Cape. Zuma and the ruling party's top brass have been crisscrossing the province to drum support ahead of the annual January 8th statement, which will be delivered by Zuma in Cape Town at Cape Town Stadium on Saturday. And meanwhile, the ANC has thanked the minstrels for postponing their annual parade to the 17th. The minstrels have been at a war of words with the city of Cape Town over the 11th hour postponement of the annual parade that attracts tens of thousands of people. The parade was earlier postponed to this Saturday, clashing with the ANC's 103rd anniversary celebrations in the city. Well, remember, all those top stories and more are all available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can follow us there. And then also keep up to date with our journalists all around the country on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Well, Eben, back to you.
Thank you very much, Katrin. Now, Matric 2014 is not going to go away just yet. The Department of Basic Education will investigate the reasons behind the steep decline in the Matric pass rate in KwaZulu-Natal. The province experienced a steep decline of 7.7 percentage points in their 2014 grade 12 results. A cloud of doubt has also been cast on the results, with 28 centres still being investigated for cheating in the province. 11 have been cleared. While the blame game continues amongst various stakeholders, the results of some schools have been withheld, awaiting further investigations by the Council for Quality Assurance in General and Further Education and Training, Umalusi. Now, head of the department, Nkosinathi Sishi, says they accept full responsibility and they are not going to offer any excuses. Sishi has told teachers that they will have to work much harder this year to reverse the situation. Now, National Teachers Union spokesperson Alan Thompson joins us from Durban this morning. Good morning, Mr. Thompson. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Eben, and good morning to your viewers.
You must have heard what I've just said about accepting responsibility and so forth from Nkosinathi Sishi. How do you view this, and are you prepared to accept some responsibility for the poor results in the province for 2014 rather?
Well, even we do accept responsibility. Remember, it is our slogan as the National Teachers Union that the quality of education will always depend on the quality of teachers. However, there are specific situations that we were confronted with, specifically in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, of which Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi, as you have mentioned, is quite aware of. The MEC for Education, Peking Konyen, is also quite aware about that. This province of KwaZulu-Natal is one of the provinces that failed dismally to employ educators and to fill over 2,000 posts that have been vacant. So those are the critical things that are making it very difficult for educators to be able to teach as expected. Again, the problem of overcrowding in classrooms. The province has, at least for the last 6 years, failed to employ educators, which means they've discouraged even schools from getting extra learners in the school, and they failed even to give substitute teachers in case somebody got promotion, in case of a deceased educator, and it has been very difficult for educators. The province has also failed to attract qualified educators in rural areas, simply because they refuse to pay for the rural incentives which were passed by Parliament 7 years ago. Those are the critical issues that we said. We need to come on board with the Department of Education so that we try to avoid the game blame, but we expect the department to play its own role so that at the end of the day, we can be able to play our own role. So we are disappointed with the results ourselves.
Are you concerned about the high levels of cheating? 28 centres are still being investigated for cheating. 11 have been cleared. The highest number in the country is in KwaZulu-Natal. Yesterday, I was told that there is a possibility that even some teachers might be involved in this sort of cheating scenario that's played out. What's your reaction to that, and how do you view it as the Teachers Union?
Well, we must indicate that any form of cheating in a school situation, it is discrediting us as teachers, and it is also discrediting the integrity of the education system in general. So we are following the investigation very close. We have already instituted our own investigation where we are targeting all the schools that are affected, just to get feedback from educators on what really happens. For now, we have also written to Umalusi to say we want them to put us on board so that we know exactly what really happens, so that we can also be able to plan for next year to say what is it that must be done to avoid this kind of a situation. You know, even what is really disappointing us is that this is the second round. Remember, during the National Senior Certificate APET examination, the KwaZulu-Natal province also had a problem of cheating such that results were withheld. That is why then we are saying we want now to be part of the process. We want to know what really happens so that we can be able to protect learners, because those are the ones who are becoming the victims of the situation. Those are the ones who are unable now to go to the university. We in Umzinyati district, where we went also yesterday, we saw educators being very much frustrated. Parents unable to have access to the results. They were only told that they cannot get the results until such time the investigation has been finalized. So all those issues are really affecting us, and we believe that something drastic must be done. We are calling even upon the National Department of Education to intervene, because there is a serious problem of education in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and we can't just take that lying down.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That's Mr. Alan Johnson, who is the spokesperson for the National Teachers Union. We're talking about cheating, amongst other things, and the drop in percentages of the pass rate for Matric 2014 in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much once again to Mr. Johnson for joining us. Now, almost 10% of teen deaths in South Africa result from suicide, with one of the triggers being exam disappointment. Since Monday, the Department of Social Development's Command Centre says it has experienced an increase in the number of phone calls from matriculants who are depressed after performing poorly in the grade 12 exams. And to talk to us about how learners can cope with these feelings of disappointment and depression, and about what the options are now, we are joined in Pretoria by UNISA academic from the College of Education, Dr. Ramadungwane Tabane. A very good morning to you, Dr. Tabane. Thank you for joining us. If I can ask you the first question then, if you're a matriculant who didn't manage to pass this year and you want to rewrite your exams, you're feeling depressed, what is the process that you need to follow?
Well, it's very important for the learners, first and foremost, to establish the facts. What is it that they can do? You correctly put it that there is an option of rewriting that particular exam. So the learners, very important, go to the school, get your statement of matric, see which subject can you improve first and foremost, and whether you have to go and repeat the entire matric, or you have to another option of doing it in a private sector as well. Students should know that this is not the end of their being, and this is not the end of the road for them. So please be in constant conversations and constant contact with the life orientation educators at school. Seek help from the education psychologists, seek help from registered counselors as well. There's also a lifeline of SADC that you can communicate with. Parents should now start to pay particular attention to their children in this respect. When you see your child that all of a sudden she or he locks him or herself in the room for a very long period of time, doesn't want to communicate, has lost interest in things that he or she used to do, doesn't want to eat. Now, those are the tail signs that you need to be concerned. As much as you need to give them room to go through what they are going through in terms of their disappointment, you also need to always be there so that they know that there is someone that they can communicate with, there's someone who's willing to listen, and there's someone who's willing to show direction and take them step by step to the next level.
If you are not going to rewrite, what options would you put forward to those students?
People talk about the gap year, where you just sit and you reflect and you see what is out there for you. However, it is very important to always have a plan. You cannot simply get your results and say, you know what, I failed, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. You always have to go back and check what the other options are there for you. We also have what we call the TVET colleges, where actually the entry of that college is grade 9. However, it will also affect the level of your qualification. So it's always very important to know that although there are other options, it's very important for you to always go back and get your matric. Like we said, get your statement of results, analyze it, because you might find that it's one or two subjects that you can improve on, then you will be able to qualify for your matric.
Thank you very much for joining us today from UNISA, for the College of Education there, Dr. Ramadungwane Tabane. There's lots of options for you there's lots of comments, there's lots of options for you if you failed or if you don't decide to rewrite. It's not the end of the world to all of those in matric. We've had response on Twitter to our minstrel story now. Let's just have a look at what you're talking about regarding the minstrels at SABC Newsroom, of course, is where you can say SABC Newsroom. We've heard the DA and the ANC on the cancellation of the Minstrel Festival. What does the Minstrel Association say? Well, the Minstrel Association says they will have the festival now on the 17th of January. Sipo Pendo says, Brett Heron is lying. It's certainly not the first time the 2nd of January fell on a Friday. Why, when the ANC is organizing a rally? Sipo is asking a legitimate question, calling Brett Heron a liar. There we have a picture of Marius Fransman from Olweto Sipuka. Comrade Fransman indicating how the DA is behaving like the 1800s settlers against slaves regarding the Cape Minstrels. Those are some of the views. We move on. Protea captain AB de Villiers believes that 2015 will be South Africa's year to lift the Cricket World Cup finally. The team will represent the country at this year's tournament between February and March in Australia and New Zealand was announced in Cape Town yesterday.
We haven't won one yet. We all know that. We desperately want to win one and bring that cup home. That's the plan. But yeah, we do feel pressure, but keeping in mind that we've been playing some good cricket and we're confident, knowing that we've got to keep our feet on the ground and work really hard, but we're confident going to Australia and New Zealand and feel we've got a really good chance to win this World Cup.
Well, joining us now in Cape Town, our specialist sports journalist Craig Murray, also a former cricket commentator and a man who played the game at the highest level. Craig, good morning.
Morning, Eben. Good morning to all your viewers.
Craig, just take us through your sort of highlights of the announcement, any surprises, your views.
You know, even there's always going to be a couple of unlucky players. So the unlucky ones would be Ryan McLaren was part of the team for quite a long time. He had an injury and never really produced good form. And Lonwabo Tsotsobe was the #1 fast bowler in ODI cricket for a while. He's also had an injury. He's done well domestically, so he'll be disappointed. And then Robin Peterson, you know, the yo-yo man of South African cricket. You'd think he could have, especially with his batting as well. But so those three will be a bit unlucky. But it's a good team. There's no real World Cup team that stands out. So, you know, any team, there's about 4 or 5 teams that could go on to win the World Cup, and South Africa is one of them.
Now, Craig, we have to apologize for the pictures that you're seeing. That's Australia playing against India and has nothing to do with the World Cup. But, Craig, I want to ask you about 2 all-rounders in the side, JP Duminy, an injury cloud over him, and Wayne Parnell. Are you happy with that? Is that enough?
I suppose Behardien will bowl his...
He's not an all-rounder, Craig.
No, there is... I mean, obviously they're looking to the batsman to do the job and the bowlers to go and do the job, and JP will obviously be very important. But I suppose the other all-rounder would be McLaren, so McLaren would be unlucky. You know, they lost 4-1 to Australia a couple of months back, and McLaren was found wanting a lot of the sort of, you know, teams either decide you go for an all-rounder, bits and pieces cricketers, or do you actually go for the specialist batsman? That's what South Africa have done. There's a couple of injury clouds as well, and I think that's affected selection because Quinton de Kock might well miss the first 2 games of the World Cup. They had to choose an extra batsman in Riley Rousseau because he might well play a few games. So the injury clouds has affected selection somewhat.
Craig, let's talk about the big C that always hangs over our heads when we go to these big tournaments. We've had a lack of success. We've never even been in a final, even though we've gone to tournaments always as a favourite or co-favourites for these events. What will the pressure be like at this World Cup?
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, the Proteas over the years, even they've earned that label as chokers. We'll be hoping that a lot of, you know, this is a sort of new generation of South African cricketers now. Guys like the Graham Smiths, Jacques Kallis, Mark Barchers aren't there anymore. AB de Villiers is the only one that's played in 2. This will be his 3rd at World Cup. There's a couple that's played in 1. So we're hoping that, I must say, just interviewing the guys, even JP Duminy even said we have choked before. In the previous World Cup, you weren't allowed to mention the word, which was a bit crazy because they eventually went to go and choke. So we're hoping, I must say that this team, you know, they impress me on the field and they impress me off the field. Guys like Hashim Amla, AB de Villiers, there's quite a lot of diversity in the side, but they seem to have the same principles. And you always need a bit of luck. I know you were at the 2007 Rugby World Cup. Jake White and his team, they were probably the best team there, but they didn't play the All Blacks. They didn't play the Wallabies. So if things go well for the Proteas, the bounce of the ball and a few things, you obviously have to do the basics well. You need a bit of luck. I'm hoping that finally they're going to win this elusive trophy.
You talk about the luck and the luck of the draw and the groups that you're drawn in and so forth. And South Africa, they're in a group with Zimbabwe, India, Pakistan, West Indies, Ireland, and the UAE. That's the easier of the groups, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the easiest. But I think in both groups, you know, you play the sort of smaller unions like the United Arab Emirates and Ireland. It really gets down to the business end when you make the quarterfinals, the semi-finals. That's when you want to peak at the right time. If you look at you know, teams that can win the World Cup, obviously Australia at home will be quite a formidable opposition. New Zealand really are improving their cricket. India always a threat to guys like Mahindra Singh Dhoni. They've had success. Unfortunately, the West Indies are doing a good job of destroying themselves. They're not choosing the best team. But even these competitions, it's always good to have the winners there, give them exposure. But it all gets down to the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, the team that peaks at the right time, the team that can handle the pressure then.
They say the team with the best bowling attack will win this World Cup down under. Craig, thank you for joining us. I think Craig will also be going to the World Cup. Am I right, Craig? You still going? You're not allowed to talk about
I'm meant
it.
to be going. No. I'm down to going, and I'm quite excited. But I'll wait till I'm on the aeroplane, Eben.
There you go. Sober views from Craig Murray, as always. Craig, if he goes to the World Cup, Craig will be giving us updates almost daily on the show about what's going on there. It's time for South Africa to win the World Cup. We've got the best team in the world, the best batters, the best bowlers. We're the best fielding side. Let's hope when the big moments come around that we deliver the goods. Let's take a final look at your tweets around Cricket World Cup. Cricket updates say, I would drop Wayne Parnell and give Van Zyl a chance. Parnell is really not a good player. Well, it's about the balance of the side. Unfortunately, Parnell is an all-rounder, and we don't have many of those around in South Africa anymore. Khomoso Makutle says, not a bad decision to leave Ryan Mack behind. I feel for the guy, but I doubt that it was personal. It's never personal. It's about the balance of the 15. Sport Fanatic says, congratulations to all the Proteas who are in the World Cup 2015 team. South Africa supports you 100% strongs and bring back the World Cup through fear. Those are some of your views, and all of us, we're tired of being called the Big C, the Chokers tag. We've got a great side, great ambassadors, and wonderful human beings in the South African side. Let's hope that they can do the business next month when World Cup kicks off on Valentine's Day. Kind of ironic that a bigger story of this year in South Africa is always a Valentine's Day story. Anyhow, Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. We also stream live every morning between 9 and 10 a.m. The show repeats at 2 in the afternoon with a total rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. Don't forget, we are on YouTube live in the mornings and available on demand all day long on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.
A gloomy Christmas for many South Africans whose jobs are on a knife's edge.
But the concern this